Welcome into this week's edition of the Recruiting Breakdown. My name is Gerry Hamilton, joined as always by CJ Vogel, who would like to thank our sponsor today. That's Mark Saunders, Texas All-State agent. Today we're going to be running down the recruiting decisions coming up. We have 3 decisions this week that will impact the Texas recruiting class one way or the other. Then we're going to take a look at the timelines of some other guys out there, some top targets for Texas. And I'm going to end with a little bit on basketball, the 2 top targets from inside the state of Texas, inside those state lines. First, I want to take a second for Mark Saunders. When it comes to protecting all your stuff, wouldn't it be great to have one place that protects all of it? Here's some great news, Texas fans. Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders is the only insurance agent you'll need to help keep tabs on protection for all your stuff. That's all of it, everything from your home, your car, and your boat to your motorcycle, RV, and even an ATV if you got one of those. Call Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders' office today at 512-218-8571. Are you in good hands? You'll be in great hands with the Mark Saunders and his 35 years of experience. Again, give him a call today. Do what so many other On Texas Football family members have done. Call 512-218-8571. All right, CJ, so we're going to get going. I mean, we're a day away, 48 hours away. Kaliq Lockett will announce his decision on August 7th at 1 p.m. It's going to be out of Texas, Alabama, A&M, LSU, Florida State. Texas has been trending in this one. We'll see what he decides in about 24 hours.
Yeah, it certainly will be a highly anticipated decision there, Gerry. Of course, Texas, a bit interesting this cycle, right? It's kind of been a rocky road with the wide receivers. You know, you would expect it not to be that big of an issue with Steve Sarkisian in the offense that he possesses to go out there and land some, highly coveted guys. But, here we are sitting August 6th, sitting around noon, 11 a.m. filming this, and, they don't have anybody in the class at the wide receiver spot. So that's going to be one where Texas is waiting for the big domino to fall. Will it be Kaliq Lockett? Will it have to be waiting a little bit longer this month for Jamie French? I think you and I both sit here thinking, since, about a month development or time, things have been trending in the right direction for Kaliq Lockett in Texas to end up with one another. It'll certainly be interesting if that comes true. But right now, that's how I'm feeling at the moment, that Texas will be finding their first receiver for the 2025 class in the next 48 hours as well.
Yeah, I think so. One of the things when you look at the recruitment of Kaliq Lockett, the 2 schools that I think really stood out from a scheme perspective for him are Texas and Alabama. That is Steve Sarkisian, Kalen DeBoer, that offensive scheme, the way they use the wide receivers in that offensive scheme in general, the productivity of the wide receiver. Kaliq Lockett, look, I think those are the 2 schools you hear most about. That doesn't mean A&M, LSU, Florida State haven't been factors in this. I do think since DeCorian Moore committed to Oregon, Texas odds have gone up with Kaliq Lockett. And I've been told they've had some really strong conversations with Chris Jackson, Steve Sarkisian here in the last 2 or 3 weeks. You're watching the tape of Kaliq Lockett there. You see a guy that has great body control, elite catch radius, 11-inch hands, and he can really do things in contested situations, in traffic situations. Got to get stronger. He's not going to run away from guys, but there you see he's going to be a red zone weapon. You just have to put the ball in the area code, and hopefully that area code's 512 for the Texas fans. And you just got to put that ball in the area code, and he will go win those battles, the majority of those battles. Kind of reminds me of Jalen Polk from Washington in that he's not going to run 4.35, 4.4. He's not going to blow away a combine in a few years, but what he is going to do is he is going to make a lot of contested catches. He plays very well within scheme. He is very good in the intermediate and the vertical passing game. And you see there he's a little slippery, more slippery than given credit for. After the catch, he had 59 catches for 1,300 yards his junior season. And as a rare guy that played a lot on varsity, he's a freshman at Saxe High, same high school as Devin Duvernay and Michigan quarterback Alex Orji, among about 4 other NFL players. All right, CJ, then we move to Thursday. Thursday will be big as well. DJ Sanders out of Belleville, total wild card recruitment. He's not a guy that communicates as much with colleges as a lot of other kids do, and I've said that a long time. Sounds like a broken record, but it's important when you're piecing this recruitment together because that includes with the colleges. He doesn't conversate. He doesn't communicate as much with college coaches as a lot of other kids do. So he's a harder one to get a gauge for, even with the college coaches. the one thing I posted this morning on ontexasfootball.com is I think and I'm not sure it has anything to do with the news out about Michigan this week from ESPN and Pete Thamel, but just the distance from home. There's family members in Detroit on the grandfather's side, but that's still a lot of travel for a family from Belleville, Texas. So it feels like it's coming down to Texas and Texas A&M. But again, with DJ Sanders, it could go any of three ways.
Yeah, that's one where it feels like when you come across information, you're finding gold, right? There just isn't a whole lot in regards to his recruitment. I actually had a coach from the DFW area call me, Gerry, and I mean, you see him running with the ball there. He texted me and said, is there some Gerry Bledsoe in him in terms of athleticism? I said, I'm not sure. You see some spurts there, but the consistency in which maybe you'd like to see more of at the high school level remains a question. But I think you do see, some of those tools that you could mold into being a contributor at the next level. Again, just finding ways to get the ball in his hands. He's got enough ability athletically to get sideline to sideline, which is rare at the interior defensive line level. But Gerry, again, going back to where this recruitment will end up, it does appear it's going to be Texas and Texas A&M. Texas, again, with Josiah Sharm in the class, would love to keep building on that momentum right now for Kenny Baker and that defensive line group. Add to the depth, add to those guys that you can look at and say, all right, maybe not a finished product right now, but we see the tools. As long as we got you on campus, we can build on that and kind of develop you into the piece that we want long-term. This is one of those guys I think Texas would love to add again, just seeing that upside athletically to mold down the line as a contributing piece in a few years.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what DJ Sanders does. And look, there's been the one thing we can answer for sure is A&M wants him, Texas wants him, Michigan wants him. All three of those teams want DJ Sanders. He's more on a different developmental timeline than some other guys for me. The other interesting thing will be when you kind of dial down this defensive line recruiting for Texas. Chase Sims is committed to A&M already. Landon Rink's committed to A&M. Chase Sims is a guy that I think Texas will continue to recruit early in the season, during the season, and see if there's any movement there. Texas A&M has 2 D linemen committed, but would still take DJ Sanders out of the state of Texas. So we'll see what DJ Sanders does there. Big decision coming up. And when will that decision happen? On August 8th. We continue to hear it probably after the sun goes down. When is that? Is that 7 p.m.? 9 p.m.? Is it 10 p.m.? Is it midnight? Is he going to throw the old midnight commitment out there? Well, we'll see. Of course, that timeline's subject to change as far as timing goes, but everything we're hearing, it's going to be more of a nighttime, just social media announcement for DJ Sanders. And then, look, that we also need to mention Nathan Tillman. On Texas 4-star safety out of Mansfield Timberview. Not one we think is going Texas way, but he's scheduled to announce on August 10th. That is looking like Utah and TCU. He made an announcement one time before prior commitment to SMU. So that close to home, came into it, played in a part in that decision with his parents. We know the parents prefer close to home. We also heard Nathan really likes the Utah. He has not had as much communication with Texas maybe in the last couple of weeks as Texas ideally hopes. So that one may be a surprise. Now, Texas would take his commitment if he jumped in there into the class, but we think that one's more leaning towards Utah and TCU headed into an August 10th decision. But after those three, CJ, we got a lot of big decisions coming up in the month of August, and we have one change now expected to be in August as well with Nick Brooks. So here's a look at the decisions. Michael Fasusi looking Texas OU. We'll get to Jonah Williams in a second, but I know CJ, you have some connections on that Oklahoma side on Michael Fasusi too. Where do you think that one's at? Headed in 2 weeks before his decision, essentially.
Yeah, very much still a Texas OU battle, right? And I've been on record a few times in the past month or so thinking Oklahoma has a slight lean. I think that they did a bit of a better job kind of relating to him on campus for the official visits during the month of June. Obviously, Bill Bedenbaugh has a great connection to the DFW area. He has also been able to push development. And when you host a offensive linemen for official visits and are able to sit there and kind of boast about the money made from offensive linemen that Bill Bedenbaugh has coached and developed, that resonates. And so I do think right now I put it at 51-49 a week ago. I'm probably up to about 53-47, maybe even 55-45 OU right now. But again, this is one in which Texas down the stretch, we've seen their closing ability time and time again. I'm not going to discount what Kyle Flood and Texas would be able to do here, but right now I sense a little bit more confidence out of Norman than I do Austin.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything that pushed me off those two teams, by the way. Joe Hamilton leaving Texas A&M, going to Florida was an interesting development in terms of A&M's chances. And what was interesting about that is Michael Fasusi took an unofficial visit to Florida the last weekend in July, right after Joe Hamilton, who was an in-house recruiting guy, popular with some kids, went back to Florida, where he came to Texas A&M from. So I thought that was probably not good for A&M's chances on the surface. We'll see, though, with a couple of weeks out. These are real battles, especially for these premium position players as we come down to the wire here. But again, Oklahoma, Texas, the top two for Fasusi in our estimation. And there is no give up on Texas side here. I think it's going to come down to the wire. All right, then the news there, also some news with Nick Brooks. We broke the news on Texas football that Nick Brooks was going to go back to the Atlanta area for his senior season. So Nick Brooks is from Iowa, a one-time Iowa commitment. He was at Cedar Rapids, JFK, freshman year. Family moved down to the Alpharetta area north of Atlanta, sophomore year, back to Cedar Rapids, junior year, and now work's called back in the Atlanta area. He's going to be at Grayson High, which they've produced a number of big-time players as a senior. Nothing's changed with Nick Brooks' recruitment. Texas, Georgia, top two, USC hanging around. We already had been reporting that Iowa was out way before the move. He didn't make the official visit there in June. Texas has been trending for a while since the June official visits for Nick Brooks. We'll have to see if that changes with him in the Atlanta area. But this was originally looking like a mid to late September announcement. Now Nick Brooks is thinking more August 23rd or 30th. So before the season, I think that change comes before his season in Georgia. Or right when that season gets going. Again, we'll see. Does this help? Does this move help Georgia? We'll see. Georgia's got 4 offensive linemen committed, and the most recent commitment, Juan Gaston, is similar prospect, similar position, same position as Nick Brooks. So it doesn't mean Georgia can't win out for Nick Brooks. But Texas has been feeling good about this one for a while. But I know cautiously optimistic is the term I would use, because when a prospect moves to the Atlanta area and the other school is Georgia, there has to be cautious optimism on Texas front. Next, CJ, I wanted to hit on Jonah Williams. So we're going to hit on this from the football and baseball angle. And this one's very interesting to me, because as I went down to Galveston Ball for practice Monday morning after coffee and football. And what I did not expect to hear out of Jonah Williams' mouth was, I've decided I'm going to graduate from high school in December. And by the way, I might just play college football and baseball. And so that was kind of news yesterday that we broke it on Texas football. First, your thoughts on that from a baseball impact standpoint. And I'm not sure I have clarity on the rule. And you may, if he enrolls at a college in January and just plays football, is he still eligible for the Major League Draft in June? Or does his clock start once he becomes a scholarship athlete in college? Something I think we probably need to check on. But that was some big news yesterday from Jonah Williams, because I don't think that was truly expected. Some colleges that are under consideration did not know that he had made that decision.
Yeah, it will be something that we'll have to check in on, right? You go back to and look at Kyler Murray and his time on the diamond and the gridiron. He got drafted out of high school, and then I think he had to wait another 3 years before declaring for the NFL draft and the MLB draft once again before entering his name once again in the draft. But we'll check. But it is surprising to me, Gerry, that he's going to forego his senior season of baseball, right? He is a very highly touted and coveted baseball player on the diamond. We've seen him throw 94. He's one of the best outfielders in all of the state of Texas for the class of 2025. Had a number of big-time offers. Texas and Texas A&M were 2 teams to watch in terms of baseball. And now that Jim Schlossnagle is in the city of Austin, I think Texas's interest, ramps up once again in terms of baseball here. So the other thing that you mentioned to me previously, Gerry, is when you consider who's pursuing him right now, and if the goal is still to play both sports at the next level, how much of a factor is travel going to be for the parents and for him? That's going to be a busy schedule, both in the fall and the spring. I'll let you hit on that a little bit more, but that certainly bodes well for the two in-state teams when you consider who else has been trying to get him on campus and in their recruiting class for 2025.
Yeah, so I reached out to somebody very close to the recruitment yesterday afternoon, and if he does play college football and baseball, and Oregon obviously is one of the top 2 or 3 schools with Jonah Williams, that does make travel a lot more difficult. If it's football, that's one thing, but you're playing Big Ten schedule and you're in Oregon playing college football and baseball. That's a lot more difficult travel for a family that has another son who's playing junior college baseball as well. So there's a lot to take into consideration there. On the surface, I definitely think that helps the schools closer to home, Texas A&M, and LSU. The other thing I'll say about the past recruitments of the Williams family are this. The father was a standout at Galveston Ball. He played at University of Houston. The older brother was committed to Texas, ended up signing with A&M, but went pro baseball. Then they have a younger, the middle brother is playing junior college baseball in Texas. These kids haven't left home. Now, speaking with Jonah yesterday, he said distance isn't a factor. He'd be a total trailblazer in this family. He'd be the first to go far away from home for college. I do think if his plan sticks to play both college football and baseball, I think there's going to be some interesting conversations at home as this decision gets closer, August 24th. All right, the last guy we're going to talk about.
That sounds a little bit like the middle child saying, I'm doing my own thing there, if so.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be it's going to be interesting to see, but I definitely think a pick far away if you're going to play college football and baseball. I think there'd be some real sit downs within that family and say, look, here's the reality. You're a 17, 18-year-old, and you're going through the recruiting process. Now let's look at it from a parent's perspective. Yeah. And his father's a judge in Galveston County, right? So there's a lot that's going to play into this as it gets closer on August 24th in terms of travel, not just with him, but the middle brother who is going to go play D1 baseball after this year in junior college. Last guy we want to hit on is Michael Terry today. Look, I spoke with somebody this morning on Michael Terry. He had a good visit in Nebraska. Maybe not a home run, but, man, they had rough weather in Nebraska when he was there, by the way. So he's made 2 visits to Nebraska, and both times they've had to go into the shelter, I think, the storm shelter. Which is interesting part of a visit you don't think about before you schedule your date. But Nebraska's facilities are top notch. Lincoln's turned into a really good college town, city. Matt Rule and his staff have done a great job in this recruitment. The other thing I was told was Will Stein has done a really good job in this recruitment as Oregon tries to overcome the distance, which I do think is a factor within his circle, the distance from home. All signs still point to good news for Texas, but we're dealing with Oregon here. Nebraska is all in. Everybody's all in. Texas A&M in the picture, but I think they're maybe on the peripheral a little bit compared to Texas. But I feel like Texas has been trending in this one, but you do make the visit to Oregon. You do make the visit to Nebraska, and neither one of those schools go quietly. And a decision could come August, September, October. That one's kind of anywhere in any time right now with the family.
Yeah. It felt like that's been the case for a little bit, right? In terms of what position he ends up, what school he ends up at, who knows, really. It's been a really large question mark this entire recruiting cycle for Michael Terry, whether it be offense, whether it be defense, whether it be both. And then, of course, what specific position. Of course, Texas has opened up that conversation a little bit with Terry, and it, over the last 2 months, I would say, has really resonated with him dating back to his official visit in the month of June. I do think, very similarly to what we're talking about with Jonah Williams, distance is going to play a little bit of a factor here. When you consider Texas only being about an hour, give or take some I-35 traffic from Alamo Heights, that's very favorable for the family. It's been something that has been a topic of conversation for me when talking to folks close to that recruitment. Also, he's got plenty of ties to the Texas area and was also hosted by Freddie Dubose on the official visit dating back to June. So we'll see. Of course, Texas would love to have him in the fold, give him that opportunity at wide receiver, and then we'll see exactly where that ends up with him on campus if he does, in fact, choose the Longhorns.
All right, then there's a couple other dates. Madden for Amo, waiting on a date there. That could be August, could be September, go into the season there. I spoke with Aiden Anding on Monday. Aiden Anding wants to make a decision before his senior year begins, senior season begins. He's had conversations with Steve Sarkisian since the LSU visit. He stays in contact with Terry Joseph daily, the Arkansas staff daily, and now the LSU staff daily. The key there with that recruitment is I'm not sure LSU really cares if he makes a commitment to Texas or Arkansas early if it's not LSU. They still have the official visit in their pocket. They're just telling him, we want to keep recruiting you, come down for a game. And I'm not sitting there saying he can't pick LSU now, but I think LSU's looking at it as we know we got in late. So we just want you to stay in contact with us. Let's let this thing play out throughout the season. I know Arkansas has done a really good job in that recruitment, as has Terry Joseph. All right, before I leave you today with a little bit of basketball news on the two guys that Texas is recruiting from inside the state lines, I want to take a second again for our sponsor. That's Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders. When it comes to protecting all your stuff, wouldn't it be great to have one place that protects it all? Here's some great news for you. Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders is the only insurance agent you'll need to help keep tabs on protection for all your stuff. Everything from your home, car, and boat to your motorcycle, RV, and your ATV. Call Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders' office today at 512-218-8571. Again, that number is 512-218-8571. Do what so many other On Texas Football family members have done. Call Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders' office today. All right, I'm going to leave you guys with this today on the recruiting breakdown. Basketball visits don't start until September, but there's two guys in state that are clear top targets. And that's Kingston Flemings, the point guard out of San Antonio Brennan, who's ascended to be one of the top 30 players in the country. Arkansas recently offered, by the way, headed before the Arkansas visit, and Cal offered. That list of schools was Texas, Houston, and Texas Tech. He's got a visit scheduled to Gonzaga, but I think they're probably too far away at the end of the day. Texas right there in the battle for Kingston Flemings, the 6'3" point guard out of San Antonio Brennan. Then there's John Clark, who's out of Klein Kane, plays with TJ Ford Elite, but he is going to Link Prep his senior year, where Trey Johnson went to school. John Clark is going to officially visit Houston, Texas A&M for sure. Kansas still trying with him, but Texas is they are all in on Kingston Flemings and John Clark on the basketball side. In-state, out-of-state Koa Pete, one of the top 10 prospects in the country, the combo forward out of Arizona, the Scottsdale area, whose older brother's Andrews Pete, NFL offensive lineman. He's going to officially visit Texas as well, looking like a 2 or 3 man class. I think Koa Pete's maybe a little steeper hill to climb, but Kingston Fleming, John Clark, both visiting in September. They are Texas' two top guys in state in the 2025 cycle. All right, for CJ Vogel, I'm Gerry Hamilton. Thanks for joining in this week's edition of the Recruiting Breakdown. We'll be back. I believe CJ will be back with Rod and Aaron Hogan tonight for Longhorn live stream, and Bobby and CJ will have a post-practice media availability report coming up at 4 p.m. All right, CJ, thanks for joining in, and we'll talk to you later this afternoon and tonight.